With that, let's introduce the next session, session 3, Malleefowl Now. And what we've got online is we have Michael Gooch from the National Malleefowl Recovery Team, and he's presenting the vision of Malleefowl community and the national perspective. A round of applause, please, for Michael as he joins us online.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. And hopefully you can see my screen. Thanks very much, and it's a real privilege to be here. My name is Michael Gooch. I live in the northwestern Mallee region of Victoria, so some prime Malleefowl territory. I live on a property adjoining Widefeld, so I'm pretty lucky to actually have birds on our property. And the photo on the screen at the moment is actually one that I took of a bird on our bush down there. Before I start, I just want to quickly thank Kane and the team and everyone over there for their hard work and support in actually being able to get us up and running and being able to present remotely. Obviously, I'm sure most of us would prefer to be over there with you in person. So as part of the presentation, I just want to kind of give you a bit of an overview of who the National Malleefowl Recovery Group are. What do we do? I'll touch on our National Malleefowl Monitoring Database. Why is a national perspective so important to the conservation of a wide-ranging bird like the malleefowl? The main challenge that we sort of face as a group, really, and our aims going forward into the future. Excuse me 1 second. Okay. Whoops, sorry, I've skipped one there. So we're an independent non-government organisation that implements the National Recovery Plan on behalf of the National Malleefowl Recovery Team, the NMRT. So really we basically do the work of the recovery team, so the administration and the operations. We're governed by a board of 5 directors who kind of oversee the direction and the plan implementation. So the National Recovery Plan is currently undergoing a review. There's work ongoing with that at the moment. So just for those of you who don't know, broadly the National Recovery Plan's objectives are to manage malleefowl populations, research and monitor those malleefowl populations, and involve communities in the project coordination and monitoring activities. So who are the NMRT? Well, we're a skeleton team of 6 people, and we, across those 6 people, we actually only total an equivalent of 2 full-time equivalent staff members. So over in the west with you guys at the moment is Liz, and thanks Liz for the intro to the Malleefowl session. That's great. So I'm sure most of you would know Liz. Then down in South Australia we have Graham Tonkin, who's our National Training and Database Manager. And I'm sure quite a few of you have probably met Graham as well over time. Up in Queensland, we have Nico, and Nico's our Communications and Media Officer. So Nico's actually doing a presentation tomorrow as well. Then down in Victoria, we have Jodie, who's our Finance and Admin Support. Joe, who I'm sure most of you will know, who's a consultant Malleefowl expert, and then of course me. So that's the 6 of us in the NMRT. So what is it that we do exactly? Well, one of the first major pieces of work the NMRT did was to design and instigate the standardised monitoring program, which is now used by project partners right across Australia when they're undertaking the monitoring. Among our key roles is the management of the National Malleefowl Monitoring Program, and all of the data is collected across the country. I'll go into that a bit more shortly in this presentation. It's worth noting that the National Malleefowl Program is one of the largest single species monitoring programs in Australia. I mean, arguably, I'm not sure of any other bigger, even outside of Australia. It provides critical data for the conservation of malleefowl, and it's important for conservation planning and decision making. So as part of our role, we work closely with a lot of NRM agencies involved in malleefowl monitoring, and we really feel these partnerships are central to ensuring a consistent approach to the malleefowl conservation across Australia, as well as providing opportunities for information sharing and networking. Every year after the monitoring season, we review all of the data for each NRM region and prepare reports to analyse historical and current monitoring data, and where possible, provide a local population trajectory so that each region gets a clear understanding of what's happening on the ground for any given season. This can help feed into how on-ground initiatives are implemented or to help organisations prioritise any actions that may be under consideration. One of the main tools in our arsenal we use to manage and analyse that data, and there's a lot of data, as you can imagine, across all of the various sites across the country. So the main tool we use is the National Malleefowl Monitoring Database, which I'll also cover later on. I guess one of the advantages of doing this online is you see everyone, I don't see everyone's shoulders slump when I mention the database, but it's good, trust me. Here's a map of the NRM regions across Australia. So there are 17 NRMs with current malleefowl. That's 135 sites with over 4,000 mounds that are visited annually. So that's a huge effort. And again, of course, that produces a lot of data that's managed by the people on the ground and also at our end when they're looking at interrogating it for reports. So the white diamonds on the map are monitoring sites. In NMRT, we currently oversee two major projects. The first is the National Malleefowl Monitoring Programme, which I'm about to go into, and the second is the Adaptive Management Predator Experiment. So firstly, the National Malleefowl Monitoring Programme has been operating for over 30 years and aims to monitor population trends. Mound activity is used as the best indicator of species survival. So the greater the number of active mounds, you can kind of extrapolate that the more malleefowl are out there in the bush. Excuse me 1 second. So several aspects of our involvement in the programme are shown on the slide, but kind of in a nutshell, we look after the data infrastructure, such as the database and the data validation, and tools such as Cyber Tracker. So Cyber Tracker is an app that we use on Android phones that people use when they're monitoring. It's being customised for our purposes and helps to standardise the way data is recorded at the mound when monitoring. So basically it steps user through a sequence of what to do when they're at a mound. You just go through the various steps and follow the instructions. It allows photos of the mound to be uploaded and for a GPS fix to be taken. So that kind of helps us ensure that the person's at the right mound and matching all of the information to that site. So Graham, who's our National Training and Database Manager, as I mentioned, he's really instrumental in delivering training events for the monitoring and also for data management. Provides technical support to volunteers and to the monitors each year, and just kind of make sure everyone's ready to get stuck into the season. And he also maintains the Cyber Tracker app and the sequences used in that app. So we maintain the protocols and manuals for the use by the volunteers and the partners. So again, this kind of ensures a consistent and replicable approach to how mound data is collected and created. So the second big project that I mentioned is the Adaptive Management Predator Experiment, or the AMPE. I'll probably just stick to AMPE because it's a bit of a mouthful. The development and the design of the project started in 2013, but wasn't implemented into the field immediately. So that work is still ongoing. The main objective of the project is to understand the impacts that controlling predators has on the malleefowl populations, and addresses one of the actions in the National Recovery Plan implemented by the NMRT. The AMPE has been a collaborative project with the University of Melbourne under the NESP Threatened Species Recovery Hub, which finished in June this year. Unfortunately, the University of Melbourne and their partners were unsuccessful in their bid to lead the next phase of NESP, which means that their involvement in the AMP will end, and the NMRG will soon be responsible for all aspects of the AMPE project. All of the experiment locations are monitored annually for mound activity in accordance with our national monitoring protocols. In addition, all of those sites have motion sensor cameras deployed. So that's basically designed to detect the activity of the predators that we're really keen on getting more information around. So mainly foxes and cats, but also other species like goats, kangaroos, rabbits, deer and pigs. With the massive information that we get from those cameras, we have volunteers help us review the photos to go through and identify the species that have been captured in those photos. So to give useful data for the experiment, the sites need to have malleefowl present in 2 or more locations with relatively similar environmental conditions and rainfall. They need to be separated by a distance that ensures that populations respond to management actions independently. And thirdly, they need to have an effective predator control strategy for those treatment sites and accurate records on the intensity, frequency and timing in those areas. As you can see from this map, the AMPE sites stretch right across the range of malleefowl. At each location, there are paired sites. One is baited for foxes, which is the treatment site, and one that is not, which is the control site. So on this map, the green sites are then treated control sites. One of the really big tasks for us is obviously reporting on all the data that our partners and organisations feed into the monitoring programme. So after all that hard work, people collecting all the high quality data, we need to look at it and present it in a useful way through reporting and analysis. This is predominantly done by collating management and environmental data at a regional level and a national level in order to understand malleefowl breeding trends. We then report this back to the NRMs and federal government. So this is just an example of some of the reporting we provide. So for instance, the chart on the left is a breakdown of species that have been caught on the camera traps. And on the right, it's an example of the breeding activity trend analysis. Excuse me, I'll try now. So as I mentioned earlier, one of our most important tools is the National Malleefowl Monitoring Database. It's really a single point repository for all things monitoring. So it's the brain of our data, really. It's significantly evolved from what I think used to be a bit of a selection of spreadsheets in the Microsoft Access database on Joe's computer. So it's become a pretty sophisticated database now with expanding functionality. We're always building on that and refining it as people's needs and requests get a bit more sophisticated, or as we are able to get down into more granular information through other means. Not only does it centralise all of the national monitoring data, it also provides access for volunteers, state coordinators and ecologists. So we have a tiered access depending on what needs to be done by each person or what information they really require. It holds important files for the monitoring programme, so manuals, safety kits, contact lists, protocols, all of the site maps, all of the mound maps, and then you've got the really super important things like fox-scat labels. So no one wants to have to hand do their own fox-scat labels that we collect on the mounds. There's a suite of monitoring reports in there we use for annual reporting. We also have the ability to review monitoring data and photos. So being able to go back and look at the historical photos for the mounds is particularly useful, even for looking at things like vegetation changes over a long period of time. So you think if there's some of those mounds that have been visited now for many years, being able to look at how those sites have changed, because all of the photos are taken at the same point and with the same angle. So it kind of keeps it fairly consistent. The database also gives us the ability to vet and error check the data and prepare for aggregate analysis. With the AMPE project and with the camera traps that we have out, a really increasingly important aspect of the database which we're constantly developing at the moment, is to help us handle all of the masses of data from those camera traps. So not only the location of sites and cameras and stores, but we've also developed it to hold detailed data on species identifications. This allows us to cross-check the same batches of photos that are being processed by several volunteers and see if there are any contradictions in what's been caught on camera. So generally, we like to have each batch of photos reviewed by 2 or 3 volunteers, 3 volunteers ideally. So for instance, to actually go through and error check that or validate it manually would be almost impossible. So being able to load up people's identifications and then have the database actually cross-reference that against the photo file name and then notifies if there's any conflicts or any contradictions is incredibly valuable to us. So since malleefowl are widespread across multiple jurisdictions throughout Southern Australia, there's clearly significant differences in geography, habitat, and very political landscapes that need to be responded to. A nationally coordinated approach to monitoring is critical. This allows the species-wide population trends to be determined, and for regional data to be considered within this context, so allowing critical information for region-specific management and conservation planning. The data gathered at the regional level underpins the ability to supply local and national trends, for which reason it's our aim to really work with all of the NRM agencies and conservation organisations that manage land within malleefowl distribution. All of these points highlight the benefit of a nationally coordinated programme that can provide comparable results and consistent results as well, importantly, among the regions. It would be impossible to really try and understand the current state of malleefowl if information was only held at a state level. Now, knowing what the trends are in malleefowl populations in different areas, it's an interesting thing to know. It's not just an academic question. It asks us why some malleefowl are doing better in that particular area. And really, in attempting to answer that question, it informs us what the birds require to survive and any measures that can be put in to obviously improve their outcomes. So we come to really the main challenge for the National Malleefowl Recovery Group. As with a lot of organisations, and I'm sure some of you in the room as well, nothing is guaranteed when it comes to the funding. So we're largely funded by the contribution of various NRMs across the country. Obviously, we'd really like to sincerely thank them for their support. Each of the NRMs contribute $8,500, which supports the ongoing operation of the group. As part of this funding, we provide annual reporting and trend analysis on the trajectory of malleefowl in their regions. We also receive funding up until 2023 from the Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment to manage the AMPE project. However, as previously mentioned, with the loss of funding through NESP to Melbourne University, we'll be taking on all aspects of the AMPE project with no additional resources available to us at this point. Malleefowl conservation work really needs to reflect the fact that these fantastic birds are a long-lived species. Therefore, we need a consistent, long-term and enduring effort to be able to secure the support, to support the work and towards helping them thrive and survive. Again, just to repeat my earlier point, a nationally coordinated approach and perspective to the regions is critical. Excuse me 1 second. So currently our operations are supported by the significant pro bono input from a large group of, fortunately, very eager and very keen and very talented volunteers, many from across the state recovery groups. The labour contribution for monitoring is estimated to be about $400,000 per year, of which 85% of that is by volunteers and the rest is by government or for instance, mining companies. So I just want to drill down on that a little bit further. I have some figures from 2017 in Victoria. So in 2017, we had 93 volunteers survey 349 mounds at 47 sites in Victoria. So this amounted to an estimated 1,429 hours in the field, 673 hours of travel to and from the sites, and a further 280 hours managing the ensuing data. So the figure has been derived from a volunteer labour value of $54.72 per hour, which is a research assistant grade 1, and accounts for the average travel expenses to and from sites. So from that, we estimate that Victorian volunteers contributed approximately, and it's $146,496 in monitoring in 2017. So this equates to a contribution of over $6 million across the history of the programme nationally. Additionally, another real major support that we get from the volunteers outside of the monitoring programme is assisting in the analysis of those thousands upon thousands of photo captures which are taken by the array of cameras across the country. And there are thousands upon thousands. There's a lot of hard drives kicking around with photos on there. So with 10 cameras in each AMPE site, you can imagine how many thousands of photos are caught each year, and the logistics around that in order to consolidate them, identify them, then send them out to the volunteers and everything. So the effort there is quite massive. Volunteers generally receive batches of, say, 10,000 photos to sort, and they manually put each species into folders, which we then count. Again, I mentioned earlier, we have multiple volunteers who'll go through and sort the same batch so that we can just have a bit more kind of validation on the IDs. To back up all of this, we're looking at how artificial intelligence can help us. So currently, Graham is working with Microsoft Megadetector and trialling Google Wildlife Insights to primarily just reduce the volume of null photos. So a null photo is a photo with nothing in them. So a lot of the times the wind will trigger some vegetation, or you might get a strip of bark waving in front of the camera that wasn't there when we set them up. So you just get lots of photos that have got nothing in them, nothing's really triggered them, as no wildlife has triggered them, no birds have triggered them. So I mean, for the whole, the whole endeavour of the recovery group and the monitoring programme, it really can't be stressed enough that without that high quality work of volunteers across the country, a national programme wouldn't be viable, and it currently relies on the ongoing commitment and goodwill of these volunteers. So our aims for the future, and we're probably cracking through fast, but hopefully not too fast. So our aims for the future is to achieve our vision to be independent and financially self-sustaining. So whilst we're very appreciative of the funding that we've received, it's obviously not something that we can rely on going forward. So some of the ideas that we're working on to achieve this explore partnering with more interested organisations and companies. So potentially, in the Mallee region, there's a lot of almond farms around some of the prime Mallee fowl territory or mining interests. So for example, in WA, we currently work with Mount Gibson, who pays to coordinate volunteers and do the monitoring. This also ensures that the data is really high standard and easily uploaded for analysis. Philanthropy, if there's any millionaires in the audience who want to lose a little bit of tax burden, let me know. Merchandising. So merchandising, I'm pretty sure Nico will discuss tomorrow. We've got some pretty cool t-shirts and mugs and things that have come out, stickers. But yeah, I'm sure Nico will cover that tomorrow. Potentially crowdfunding for specific targets or specific project outcomes. So we really aim to raise the profile of Mallee fowl and strengthen the connections between people in the country. There's an extremely strong community built around the Mallee fowl, especially in the monitoring groups across the country. I recently joined the Victorian Mallee fowl recovery group a few years ago when I moved up into this area. And you can see people have been working together for many years, and the bond there is incredibly strong. I'm sure it's the same for your groups. So we want to get a bit more of the limelight on to the Mallee fowl and take their story to a wider audience. As part of doing that, we're working with Remember the Wild on a new film, which will help increase funding opportunities both in Australia and overseas. expand on the great work that Nico is doing with social media and communications, and continue building new partnerships, such as with schools, trying to get them involved, and certainly locally with the BMRG have had good success engaging one of the local schools here as well. So if anyone would like to contact the group, you can email me at michael@nationalmallefowl.com.au, and that's basically the end of the presentation, so I'll throw it open to any questions. I'm pretty new to the national coordinator role, so go gently if you do have any questions.
Thank you very much, Michael. Are there any questions? You were very thorough, Michael. I think that's why there's no questions in the room.
Oh, good. or they're just going easy on me.
No, that's it. So, oh, we've got one. We have got one. It's coming down the front. Bear with me.
So, Michael, we haven't met before, but I'm Jessica. I'm over at Charles Darwin. I'm on the state recovery team. My question for you is, what brought you into Malleefowl? Why are you so interested in it?
Now this is, I'm hoping this doesn't preempt Liz's presentation shortly. So my partner and I actually bought a property that was bequeathed to the Victorian group. So we were living in the west of Melbourne at the time, and we basically kind of bought the property, and then within a few weekend visits, the Mallee's got a real knack of getting its hooks into you. It's a pretty compelling landscape. And then obviously we're both, my partner and I are both very keen birders anyway. And yeah, we kind of got involved in the Victorian group. And from there, and then obviously seeing birds on our property, and just fell in love with them, and fell in love as well with the passion of the group as well, even before we really got stuck into working with the birds and getting involved in the monitoring. So I think the combination of the landscape and just seeing how well the birds are adapted to this landscape as well. So I've been really fortunate. We've been having birds pretty much every night since the end of March. So I've spent quite a lot of hours with them this year, and I've seen some fascinating behaviour. And every time I see them, it's more and more addictive.
That's excellent. And I could just see in the frame on what we can see you, Michael, I can just see how elated you are when you speak about Malleefowl. So it was a wonderful question. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone please put your hands together for Michael for a great presentation?
Thanks, everyone. And I've really enjoyed the talk so far, and I look forward to the ones coming up.
Wonderful. So